Queen has led senior royals in hosting a special G7 dinner for all the leaders of the world. It's the first time the royals have welcomed diplomats to the United Kingdom since the start of the pandemic. The Prince of Wales addressed the summit leaders before the dinner, calling on the same mobilisation seen during the pandemic to be used to fight climate change.
The fight against this terrible pandemic provides, if ever one was needed, a crystal clear example of the scale and sheer speed at which the global community can tackle crises when we combine political will with business ingenuity and public mobilization. Ladies and gentlemen, we are doing it for the pandemic. So, if you don't mind me saying so, we must also do it for the planet.
Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall, as well as the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, have joined Her Majesty to maximise the royal family's powers of soft diplomacy. Earlier, US First Lady Jill Biden and the Duchess of Cambridge visited a preschool to draw attention to the importance of education.
Shalom. Call hello Yahweh Shemel Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Yahweh Shemel Shai Barakathum, to the hopefully elect. And I just wanted to speak on this briefly, dealing with this summit, this G7 summit. All right, because when you read in the book of the Psalms, the 83rd chapter, the Psalms, the 83rd chapter, it talks about this confederacy. All right, and it talks about, in that same chapter, it gives you a list of all the nations that basically conspire against the Yahweh Shemel Shai, and they conspire against the children of Israel, which is you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. All right, these different leaders, when they come together, they discuss these things on how to basically offset prophecy. All right, and again, speaking on this summit, all right, because this is one of those, one of those things where, this is one of those times where these leaders, they come together and they talk about these things, they discuss these things. Now, of course, to put it out there, all right, they're gonna, say that, they're talking about things such as this pandemic, recovering the economy, bringing back jobs and infrastructures, and just stuff that they put out there in the forefront. But again, behind closed doors, again, they're actually discussing these things conspiring against the children of Yahweh Shemel Shai, which again, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. So all these leaders, they come together, or these different leaders, they come together. All right, and because stuff like this, man. Of course, Jake, they're not paying attention to whatsoever. They have no idea about these summits. They have no idea what's going on, and quite frankly, Jake, man, they can give two shits about it. But again, whenever you see things like this, especially stuff like this, man, with the so-called royal family, all these leaders coming together and coming to the royal family castle, whatever they call it. All right, having these dinners and stuff like that. When you hear things about this, you hear things like this, it should definitely make it should definitely raise your eyebrows. All right, because again, contrary to what because speaking on things like this, man, for a long time, you get called crazy, conspiracy theorists, so on and so forth. But nevertheless, man, there is a plot against you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. All right, and you can also read about that in the book of Psalms, the 64th chapter, when King David, he was praying, to basically be protected from the wicked counsels, these again, when these leaders come together, man, because they're devising all type of wicked schemes, man, and plots and whatnot. All right, I was reading in one of the videos, they were talking about a one world, one health. All right, You know, because basically, again, you know, um, being that what was I reading, man? Because the you know the motto with like Joe Biden and this guy Boris Johnson out there in not Brazil, but the UK, all right, talking about Build Back Better, all right. You know, again, basically, man, which I'm gonna get it in the book of Job, all right. This Build Back Better, right? You know, because again, this is the stuff that they put in the forefront. You know, they're talking about China's aggression. You know, they're talking about how they could what do you call it, dealing with the you know what's the thingy thing, all right. You know, how to plans for that, stuff like that, which again, you know, is just a forefront. But in reality, man, they're really talking about how to put together and you know, this for this right here. I'm gonna just read it in Job chapter 5 and verse 13. It says, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the forward is carried headlong. It says, they meet with darkness in the daytime and grope in the noonday as in the night. All right, so they meet with darkness. All right, again, you know, because another scripture talks about how they devise wickedness, man, on their beds, man. They're just constantly around the clock, you know, coming up with these wicked schemes. All right, these wicked plans, all right, for world domination. All right, a one world order, or whatever you want to call it. All right. But this is, actually what I wanted was in verse 12. It says, he disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. All right. Again, they're one world order. All right. One world, one health. All right. This is what they're discussing on how to move forward with these, you know, with these wicked agendas. All right. This is what's going on in these different summit meetings, which you so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians are not invited to. You know, and why do you think that is? All right. You know, but again, Jake, man, they don't, you know, they could care less about these things. But nevertheless, like I said, you know, when you see stuff like this, these leaders coming together and stuff like that, man, your eyebrow should, you know, raise up. You know, your spiritual antenna should, you know, be alerted. All right. Job chapter 18 in verse 7, it says, the steps of his strength shall be straightened, and his own counsel shall cast him down. All right, because ultimately, at the end of it all, Esau's plans are going to come crashing down on his own head. All right, and I also read that in Job. All right, you know, their craft, their counsel. You know, matter of fact, let me go back to that. Job chapter 5. Job chapter 5. I start at verse 12. It says, he disappointed the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the forward is carried headlong. All right, so you see again, all their plans, all their wicked schemes, man, eventually the Lord's going to make it come crashing down on their own head. All right. You know, and going back to this real quick, going back to Job 18 and 7. Again, it says, the steps of his strength shall be straightened. All right. And his own counsel shall cast him down. All right. But it said the steps of his strength shall be straightened. So basically meaning going into difficulty. All right. Because here it is. You know, people are waking up to the fact, you know, people are waking out of that sleep, basically. All right, because for a long time, people were in that state of slumber. Like I said, you know, just not going on, which a lot of our people are still in that state of slumber. But for the most part, the mass majority of the people are waking up to the fact, man. They know this whole pandemic has been is bullshit for the most part. People are waking up to that fact. All right, people are waking up to that fact that this whole pandemic has been nothing but a way for like an excuse for these elites to usher in for these, their agendas. People are waking up to that fact. So Esau sees all these things going on. All right. And that's why, I often say, man, because they're going to start ramping things up, man. Things are going to start speeding up. All right. Because, Esau, man, he has to get this thing rolling, man. He has to, get the ball rolling on this thing, man. All right. And they're in straits. All right. Because, for the most part, a lot of these, when it comes to these elites, man, a lot of them are they're divided. Because, you got some of these elites, man, they want to continue to wait and test and plan things out, so on and so forth. But on the other hand, you got some of these elites, man, they're like, man, like I said, we got to get this thing rolling, man. We can't sit back too much longer, man. We got to do something now. We got to act, so yeah, man, and again, ultimately at the end of it all, the Lord's going to ultimately, bring down this whole thing, man, and then basically it's going to backfire on these elites in a major way, on a major scale. All right, so that's how they're going to be straight, man. I'm going to go to this, the book of Psalms 37 and 12. Psalm chapter 37 and 12, it says, "The wicked plotteth against the just, and gnasheth upon him with his teeth." So you see again, all right, just going back to the wicked counsel, man. These things that they talk about in secret. Again, they're plotting against the Israelites. All right. Believe it or not, man. Like I said, read the book of Psalm, the 83rd chapter. Read the book of Psalm, the 64th chapter. All right. There is a wicked scheme. There are plots, man, that these devils, they get together. They, come together behind closed doors or whatever. All right. And they speak on these things, man. They discuss these things, how to keep us in a state where we're disconnected from our power, so on and so forth, man. Keeping us from rising up. All right. But little do they know, all right, hey, man, ultimately, man, this is all the will of Yahweh Shemel Shai. All right. So they can only do but so much, But yeah, man, again, it said, "The wicked plotteth against the just, and gnasheth upon him with his teeth." All right. Because eventually, man, it's going to get so out of control for these elites, man. Eventually, man, they're just going to, revert back to what they always do. All right. Which is, their carnality, their blessing, their teeth, their power structure, their weapons, military, so on and so forth. All right, because that's all he can do. Go about things in a carnal sense. Be carnal. That's all Esau can do. All right. But I'm gonna go here in the book of Maccabees. The book of Maccabees, first Maccabees. Because again, man, there's always been this plot against the children of Israel. Against the children of Yahweh Shemel Shai. There's always been a plot, man. But First Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 10, it says, I don't think this is what I wanted, but I'll read it anyways. It says, First Maccabees 2 and 10, it says, "What nation have not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils?" And like I said, that's not what I wanted, but it still, ties in because, again, all these nations have had their partake in our downfall. All these nations, when it comes to these summits and these meetings and whatnot, it's not just Esau. It's not the top leaders amongst Esau, but all these nations, all these heathens. All right, they all come together, man, because they all had a part in our downfall. All right, they all got rich off of our downfall. All right, they all partook in our spoils, man. They all benefited, and this is why Yahweh Shemel Shai is going to gather them in the valley of Jehoshaphat and render judgment, because all these nations have partook in our downfall. So again, when it comes to these meetings, all these nations, man, these different meetings, man, they come together, man. This is what they do. They talk about these things, and again, it's only going to get but so far. But Lamentations 2 and 15, because you can go back to that. Maybe that's why I brought it up, because I mentioned the Psalm, the Psalm, the 83rd chapter. Maybe that's why I brought that precept out, because again, the book of Psalms, the 83rd chapter, tells you all the nations. All right. All the nations that have conspired against Yahweh Shemel Shai and the children of Israel. All right. Because we are that nation that is not desired, man. Because, hey, they know, these nations know, once the children of Israel come back into power, that means that's pretty much it for these other nations. That means slavery for them. They know this. All right. So this is why, you know, again, this is why all these nations, all these heathens, man, they partake in this. All right. But Lamentations 2 and 15, it says, all that pass by clap their hands at thee. They hiss and wag their head at the daughter of Jerusalem. Because, you know, again, we were once the most, we were on top at one point, man. You know, we had it all, man. We were decked out and everything, you know, because the spirit of Yahweh Shemel Shai, even in our lowest point, man, it's always dealing, you know, pretty much always been on us for the most part, you know. And even when Yahweh Shemel Shai wasn't dealing with us, you know, his spirit was, you know, he was still dealing with us, so to say, because his spirit is just on us, you know, and you know, and it's everything that we do, man, we stand out. All right, the nations, you know, we're always a spectacle. If I'm saying, if that's the right word, the nations always looked at us in awe. All right, you know, because we were the shit. You know,